Welcome to The Cauldron, a podcast hosted by Ed Bolden-Greer, the creator of Vail. In each episode, Ed will have free-flowing conversations about horror, life, culture, and personal growth. Expect to hear from storytellers, authors, horror experts, life gurus, thought leaders, and influencers. The Cauldron is a place where concoctions of a lot of ideas are brewed down to potions that are sometimes important and useful, sometimes eccentric and bizarre, but always just what you need. The Cauldron podcast may contain explicit language and thematic elements not suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
Well, hey there, family. Welcome back to the Ravensville Cauldron podcast, where the whispers of wisdom echo and the warmth of our community gathers. As the cauldron simmers, we're here to brew up a concoction of topics that resonates with the soul and sparks the imagination. I'm your host, Ed Bolden-Greer, and this is my co-host, Jacob A. Gardner, a.k.a. Frady Cat.
Hello, everyone. Today's episode pierces the veil between the mundane and the magical, exploring the mystic side of the art of tattoos. Legend has it that idle hands are the devil's playground. Yet, for our special guest today, it's the birthplace of creativity. With the artistic mind of a true sorcerer and the skilled hands of a master spellcaster, he etches tales of enchantment on living parchment. His fingers dance with the precision of an alchemist, transmuting blank skin into mesmerizing masterpieces. Family, today we invite you to join the circle as Jason Jefferson, the visionary behind Idle Hands Tattoo, helps us stir the cauldron. Jason, welcome to the Cauldron.
Hey, how you guys doing today?
Doing great.
Fantastic.
Jason, we're so glad you're here with us today. Why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and how you got started in tattooing?
So how did I get started in tattooing? That's a good question. I've been an artist as long as I can remember. Went to college for graphic design. Went to MICA in Maryland for fine arts. Yeah, really didn't do much with the graphic design. Just the industry had kind of fallen apart at that time.
Right.
Ended up going back to school for another 5 years to become a master electrician.
Wow.
Spent a good bit of time working in nuclear, traveling around the country. That was the pivoting point where I was like, okay, I'm really getting sick of spending 6 months in Port St. Lucie, Florida, and then 3 months up off of Lake Ontario, and then 6 months out in California, and 3 months in Indiana. I was like, okay, what am I gotta make a shift here. Some friends had become tattoo artists and were like, man, you're a good artist. Like, you should give this a shot. And so I did, and absolutely fell in love with it, and happened to be semi-good at it.
You certainly are. That's a fantastic story. Before we dive into the core questions, we have a few get-to-know-you questions we like to ask all our guests. Are you ready?
Yeah.
So first, are you a horror fan?
I do like some horror movies. It's not like my go-to.
Okay. What would you say your favorite horror movie is?
Man, I really like Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Classic.
Such a good movie.
The original, right?
The original?
Yeah, the original.
Yeah.
I don't mind the remakes either. They were good. What was it called? It's kind of a comedy. It's like Groundhog Day, but like repeating of the same day. But this person keeps getting murdered. They have this like baby mask. I can't remember.
I don't remember the name.
That came out a couple years ago.
Yeah. It's not very old, but I found that hilarious.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was the one with like the sorority girl that gets murdered a bunch, right?
Yeah, Happy Death Day. That's what it was.
Death Day.
That's
That
it.
was it. Yep. Yeah.
So tell us about the last Halloween costume you wore.
Oh, wow. Well, we just moved down here. I did walk around with like one of the Black Label like Darth Vader helmets on. That would be technically the last one. I didn't really have anything else on. Although I did get stopped a lot by people like, oh man, that's a really nice mask. Like,
That's cool.
guys, like, you should see my basement. I have a whole Star Wars themed basement. Yeah, prior to that, I did V for Vendetta, but I had the white mask like splattered in blood.
Oh, that's
Nice.
cool.
Yeah.
If we were to ask your best friend, like, really take a few seconds to think about this. If we were to ask your best friend to describe you, what would they say?
Oh, that's a good one. What would Ryan say about me? He would probably say I'm a genuinely good person and slightly scary.
Okay. If Jacob and I were to go to your family reunion, okay, what embarrassing story would like your mom tell about you every single time people get together?
Oh, wow. Okay, my mom would definitely tell this story, and I don't know if it's because it's funny or because she was so mad at me. But like, I used to skate when I was a kid and hit a rock, fell, chipped half of one of my front teeth, got it fixed, and a week later did the same exact thing, rebroke that one, and chipped the tooth next to it. I don't think I'll ever live that down. She's so mad about that.
Okay, last of these get to know you questions. If you could cast any magic spell without any kind of consequences, what would it be?
Ooh, tempting. Probably being able to duplicate other things that people have like mastered, or figure out how like see like an art form and be like, okay, how did they learn to mix those colors, or how did they pick up that painting technique?
Gotcha.
Stuff like that.
Gotcha.
That's a really cool answer. Now, Jason, as you can see, I'm a bit of a tattoo addict. I've got quite a few myself, actually.
Yeah.
So what tattoo styles do you specialize in, and where do you find inspiration for your designs?
I do a lot of I'm like love anime. I don't think a day goes by that don't watch at least 30 minutes of anime.
So just so everybody knows, Jason's studio is right across the hall from the podcast office, otherwise known as the
G spot. Yeah.
G is our suite, and I can attest, anime on all the time.
Hopefully it's not too loud.
No.
Sometimes it gets a little crazy. You're like into a fight scene and I'm like, volume down. And then somebody's talking and I'm like, what'd they just say?
Is that what you originally started out doing? Was that what you wanted to do?
No. I started out really probably where anybody else starts out, like, simple walk-in stuff, infinity signs, crosses, simple flowers, Sailor Jerry, Flash.
Oh, yeah.
Stuff along those lines. When the mandalas and stuff, I really got into those when they first came out. And I don't know, I got really good at like putting color in. So I do black and gray pieces, not often. I just really love doing color work. And it kind of led into other things like neo-traditional is very colorful. I love that style. And then now with, anime and video game being so popular, it really just lends itself to what I love to do. And it's funny, I have clients that are like, oh man, how long have you been, watching anime? And I'm like, wow, like Suncoast Video, if you know what that is, in the international section, like grabbing VHS tapes, like Fist of the North Star and stuff like that. So forever.
Jason, can you I consider myself creative, but I'm definitely not the artistic type. Can you kind of walk us through your creative process when you're designing some custom piece for somebody? And how, I guess this is a two-part question. How do you balance the artistic side, I guess you'd call it artistic vision that you have with the client's ideas and preferences? Because I know people ask for some really weird things sometimes.
Yeah, this is true. I don't really judge much. I've had people get, a fishing hook under the skin on their foot, and other people are like, why would somebody get something like that? Or a trout on their arm, why would they get that? And I'm like, they fished with their dad as a kid. Like, you can't really, judge any tattoo and its meaning or relevance to its owner. For me, I think a lot has to do with the consultation process. I do free consultations with people. I try and keep them around 30 minutes. Sometimes they go a little longer, depending on, where the conversation goes. This allows me to, ask questions. Like, I had a kid whose grandmother died, and he wanted, like, a very basic, like, I want a dove and a banner with, like, her name and death date. And a lot of times I'll say to people, like, do do you really want somebody's name and death date on you? You're always going to get stopped and asked. Maybe you're not in the mood, like, oh, who died? And so I'm started to ask him, like, okay, what did you guys do that was meaningful to you? And he got to telling me stories, and ironically, sparklers. What he remembers as a kid was she constantly was lighting up sparklers and going outside and playing with sparklers. So we were able to do this dove with sparklers, and he put her nickname that he called her in the banner, no death date. That way it's meaningful to him. And I have people like, oh, my father died or this or that. And I'm like, man, instead of the name and date, like, what did you guys do together? Did you guys play hockey together, get a hockey puck, or something, did you guys race RC cars? Or I feel like there's always something more meaningful in the person you're trying to commemorate than just a name and a death date. Like, oh, who died? You're probably not always in the mood for that. And like every time you see it, you're like, oh, my dad's dead. You know what I mean? Instead of being like, oh man, that's an RC car on my arm. Like me and my dad used to like race those all the time. What good times.
I think that's really cool that you're helping guide people who are going through grief or maybe it's a celebration, but because you see people come in and get things and then potentially regret them, you're helping guide them to things that will bring them joy, and they'll enjoy their tattoos more,
I don't per se know that they'll regret them. I don't know. I care about what I do, and I care about what impact I have on people. And I feel like just putting that little extra bit of thought into it, making them think about it, because for most people, it's like, what does everybody do? Oh, they get a name and a death date. And it's just so basic when there's just so much more I personally feel like there's so much more you can do with a tattoo to commemorate, someone in the time you spent with them and the joy you had together, and opposed to like, they died on this day.
Yeah.
Well, segueing from that, Jason, could you share an unforgettable client interaction, negative or positive?
Yeah. Kind of on the same topic. I had a guy who had a little bout with alcoholism, and it got a little out of hand, and he kind of separated with his wife and wasn't able to see his kids for a bit. And he was at a low point, a really low point. And I knew him outside of, like, we were cool outside of, him just being a client. And I would do this with anybody. But he wanted these two jackals tearing this heart apart across his chest. And we talked about it, and I designed it, but I kind of backed them off a little bit and put some red in the front of their face. But I just didn't feel comfortable with them, like, tearing his heart apart. I'm like, man, he came in to look at it, and he's like, oh, I want it to, and I'm like, just hear me out. Like, I'll completely modify this if you want. But, like, man, you're at a low point right now, but is it really over? Like, it's not, man. Like, here it is a month later, you've seen your kids again, like, you haven't been drinking, like, it's only up from here.
Right.
This is just the beginning of a journey. Do
you want to have that memory for the rest of your life?
Is that what you want for the rest of your life? Right. I don't want you to regret this. And, he was like, man, he genuinely thanked me. He's like, man, I really appreciate that. Like, I think you're right. And, I try not to get too, and, I try and just give my opinion. And if that's take it or leave it, that's just my outside of the box perspective and experience that I like to bestow
that's
on
wonderful.
people.
Can you tell us a little bit about the history of tattoos? I in doing research, I found out a lot of stuff, but can you tell us, like, what your perspective is on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Tattoos they've been a part of life since man. They found, what was his name? The Iceman. He was, what is it?
Ötzi the Iceman. Yeah.
Ötzi the Iceman. And I think he was 5,000 years BC. So, 7,000 years ago? And he had tattoos on him. And, I'm not going to lie, if I killed like a saber-toothed tiger or something, be like, man, we're going to ink myself a little saber-toothed tiger on my arm.
Yeah.
But the Egyptians, all across the world, every culture, every time period, they've used tattoos to either religious beliefs or, to denote being royalty, or, even the English back in the day, they were the people that had tattoos. Like, you know, a lot of English royalty had like tattoos and stuff.
Yeah.
That's super, super
That's
cool.
super interesting. Yeah.
Okay, guys, we're going to take a little break, but we'll be right back to talk with Jason some more.
Well, hey there, family. I'm Presley King, the voice of Uncle Theo here at Ravensvale Podcast. At Ravensvale, we love telling you our story. That's why I'm excited to tell you about Appalachian Horror Fest 2024. Appalachian Horror Fest 2024 is an evening of music and storytelling themed around the macabre. The event will take place on Saturday, October 12th, 2024 at Central Cinema in Knoxville, Tennessee from 5:30 until 9:30. Our hauntingly talented musicians will serenade you with eerie tunes that echo through the misty Appalachian hills. Gather round as our master storytellers weave through their blood-curdling tales. Legends of restless spirits, vengeful ghosts, and ancient curses will dance in your imagination. Tickets are on sale now at AppalachianHorrorFest.com/tickets. Oh, storytellers! If your words can raise goosebumps and summon sleeping spirits, step into the spotlight. Submit your spine-chilling tale at AppalachianHorrorFest.com/storytellers. Appalachian Horror Fest. We hope to see you there.
And we're back with Jason. Jason, we're going to just dive right into it. Do you see any kind of emerging trends right now in the tattoo industry?
Fine line, super small tattoos. I know there's a lot of question as to how these things hold up and controversy between like very traditional, bold line.
Yeah, I'll tell you a really interesting story real quick. I have a friend. I talk about him on here all the time. He's been my best friend for years, and his name's Paul. And when we were much younger, he wanted a tattoo, but he also knew his parents were not going to approve of it. So he got this maybe a 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch tattoo, right? And it was he's gay, and it was a pink triangle with the 2 male symbols, and it was really pretty when he first got it. And come forward, a few years. He was going through massage school at our school. And our lead instructor at the time came to me, and she was so concerned. And she said, "Ed, I'm really concerned. I think you need to have a talk with Paul. He has a sore on the back of his leg, and I'm pretty sure it's cancer."
Oh.
And I said, "Is it on his right leg?" And she said, "Yeah." I said, "Is it down towards his ankle?" She said, "Yeah." I said, "That's a tattoo. It just has bled into it. It does. It looks like a open sore now." So I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is over time, all lines are going to expand. It's just, I've done like seminars and stuff with some of the best people in the country out in Texas, and, they can show like, here's my tattoo originally, here's 1 year later, 3 years later, 7 years later, 10 years later, and, it was a traditional work. So you see these lines expanding, and I have an octopus on my side, and 20 some years ago, the lines were clearly not that size. So a lot of these very mini things get fuzzy and blurry, or they're too small and the lines are too close together. But yeah, I mean, with trends, I think a lot of it is just how the industry has changed. You have people coming out of high-end art colleges, diving into this as like, this is going to be my career, not like stumbling across it. They're getting degrees to transition into this.
Well, a lot of them go into college knowing what they want to do,
Yeah.
and they're getting the art degree so that they have not just credentials behind their name, but they have the experience, and they have the techniques to do the art,
Not everybody can go to school to be an electrician and just be talented like you, I guess, right?
Well, he did go to art school.
Oh, yeah,
God.
you did, actually, yeah.
God, how tall are you?
Yeah, I'm 5'5".
It must have went over your head. Have you ever had anybody come in for like a magical or a mystical tattoo?
No, not that I can remember. Not that it was disclosed to me.
Right.
I've had people come in and get religious things. I had a friend of mine do a piece on my side to commemorate my great-grandfather. He, helped redo the constellation that sits in the harbor in Baltimore. And he found this like little trident-looking coin thing and put it on the bottom. And was like, man, I don't know what this means, but I thought it looked cool with the piece. And I was like, yeah, let's run with it. And I eventually looked it up, and it was a Greek symbol, and supposedly whoever wore it, nobody could lie to you. I actually got one made into a necklace. Whether it works or not, I don't know. But, I thought it was a cool little, fact and tidbit that I, got accidentally. That
Maybe that's why Jacob hadn't been really able to talk to you.
Yeah, I know. I've been quiet most of this episode.
my medallion's working on them.
Well, you've kind of already touched on this, but I'm curious if you could tell us another story. Like, tattoos often hold a deep personal meaning. So how do you connect with clients on an emotional level?
Circling back to the consultation, just really trying to ask questions like, what does this mean to you? What's the backstory if they want to share? Like the guy with the jackals, I had a guy who wanted a heart with bullet holes in it for a failed engagement from, I think, 2.5 years prior. And I was like, man, are you, I just felt compelled to be like, man, are you sure? Like, that's what you want on you? Like, you got a long life in front of you to be like planting that on your chest. Like,
yeah.
And, he got emotional, and we talked about it some more. And he paid me to design it. I designed it, and we never booked it. And I would like to think that, maybe he was like, you know what? This probably isn't the greatest idea. Maybe he met somebody and was like, do I really want to have to explain the meaning of this tattoo or lie about the meaning of this tattoo?
Yeah.
When I'm in my 30s and I have my whole life in front of me. So
Or what am I going to tell my kids
Right.
what this means?
Yeah.
Right. This is a failed relationship in my 30s.
Yeah.
I think that speaks a lot to you. Something that I keep hearing is that, like, it's not about money for you. Like,
No.
you could easily just be like, okay, cool, this is what you want, awesome. But, like, I really like that it goes beyond just a transaction for you. You're like, I'm putting this on you for forever.
Oh,
And you
it's-
really take the gravity of that seriously.
It's absolutely forever. I don't do, I went to college for fine arts, but I don't do a whole lot of realism anymore. But I heard people that worked at shops that are like, man, they're like, don't let anything walk out the door. And I'm not giving somebody's grandmother Down syndrome or something because the eyes aren't spaced correctly.
Yep.
I have no qualms, referring somebody like, oh man, you want a black and gray portrait? Like, I suggest you go over here. Or, even if I think I could do a great job at something, if there's somebody nearby that is very tuned in with that I think could do a better job, I have no qualms being like, hey man, you should go see this person, like talk to them, get a vibe check, see if you're, that's important.
Absolutely.
I mean, you get a tattoo from somebody and they're a total asshole, and you end up regretting this tattoo because of a bad experience.
Yeah.
Or if you do a tattoo that's not in your genre or in your style because somebody wants it, they may go out unhappy and then trash you all over the place.
Yeah, I worry a lot about that. If, you're out in the wild and people are going to be like, oh man, where'd you get your tattoo? They're super nice about it, but they're really thinking one of two things. Where did you get that tattoo? Because it's truly awesome. I want to go to that person. Or where'd you get that tattoo? It looks like shit, and I want to know to avoid that place.
Well, I'm just going to tell you from experience. Jason did one of Jared's tattoos.
Yeah.
And it looks phenomenal. And
Thank you.
and you took enough time to make sure that you had what he wanted after the consultation. And there was a change, but then it was something you recommended that made the tattoo so much better.
Thank you.
Just to be honest. And then I will say the thing that when we were talking about doing this show, the reason I wanted to have you on the show is remember when Snowpocalypse was happening?
Yeah.
That's when Jared had his appointment for the tattoo, and it was a 2-day process because it was a big piece, and so Jason weathered the storm, so to speak, came out, did the tattoo. I was grateful for the extra work time because I got to be over here at the podcast office doing my thing, but it was not about you just coming out from the weather. It was about the quality of care that you wanted to give to each of your clients after you'd done the work. Because, most people would have said, hey, it's snowing, we're going to reschedule, okay? But it wasn't, like I say, doing the tattoo. It was the fact that it was on a weekend, and on that Sunday, you yet again came out, and we met you at the school because it was closer, and we didn't want to do all the back roads that were icing again, to make sure that you changed the dressing for him, and to make sure that everything was the way it was, or the way it was supposed to be. And I really appreciated that. Like that was primo. That wasn't something that you have to do, because I know a lot of tattoo artists don't do that, but it meant a lot to us because we could just tell how much you cared about your art and about the people that you're working with.
Yeah, dude. And let the record show, when you messaged me, because during that process, I couldn't even get out of my street, right? And we were messaging each other every day, like surviving the snowpocalypse. And then they said, yeah, we're going to go get Jared's line work done first. I went, dude, what? So let the record show, this Jason guy does not let weather stop him from getting the work done.
A little continuation on that story. I had to stay on the phone with Frady Cat here as he went to the basement of his house, which he had never been in.
I didn't even know it existed.
He didn't know there was one, which was probably haunted.
Probably. For all I know.
Which I'm going to guarantee him it was haunted.
Probably.
And I had to be on the phone with him on FaceTime.
Yeah. Dude, it looked like a place you would dump a body, for starters. It was just big enough for me to stand up in, which isn't that high.
You're only how tall?
5'5".
Yeah. How tall did you think you were?
I thought it was 5'6". That's another day.
Yeah.
Don't worry about that.
But he had to go look for a shovel because he needed to get out, and there was no shovel down there.
No, there
What
wasn't.
did you finally use to break up the ice?
I used a 15-pound weight plate.
Okay.
And I got on my hands and knees and just busted up the ice and then picked it up with dish gloves on to get out. And I wasn't even tattooing somebody that day.
Jason, we've talked a lot about the sentimental side of tattoos. I want to kind of do a complete turnaround here. Do you have any funny or unexpected moments that have happened during your tattooing practice?
Funny or unexpected? Okay, so if I could circle back just for a second, I'm really glad to hear that you appreciate the customer service and the fact that I care so much, because that does happen quite often. And my wife is like, your clients probably think you're weird as shit because, funny.
Let me just say, you are weird as shit.
I'm good with that.
But I'll tell one more little side of that story. Your wife's the one who got stuck at the bottom of the hill that day.
Yes. Yeah. But I had a client, and she's like, oh, I'm really busy. I'm not really worried about the second skin. And I'm like, it's like a big piece, like starting a sleeve. And I'm like, okay, so what are you doing? She's like, oh, I'm going on this date. And I'm like, where at? She's like, Orange Hat. I'm like, cool, that's like 5 minutes from my house. I was like, what time? I was like, I'll meet you there. And I literally walked into Orange Hat while she was sitting down on her first date, sat down, glove, clean, put the second skin on. Hey man, what's up? Okay, you guys enjoy your date, and went home for the day and went about my business. So I guess that's me being strange, but yeah, I care about aftercare and stuff like that.
Well, I mean, it keeps people coming back, and I don't know how you couldn't care. You know what I'm saying? For me, I this is kind of my art, the whole process of podcasting, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to just save it one time. I save it 2 or 3 times so that we don't lose anything, you know.
Smart.
And you're putting your art on human canvas, and you have to take care of that human canvas, at least until you have to let it go, you know.
Well, and I mean, I get it. People are, I love second skin because, you know, you get people in construction and, you know, you're on a job site and, you know, you're cutting into your break time and your lunch time and you got to find, you know, clean water, not just potable water and
Right.
a little bit of ointment and stuff like that. The second skin is just great because nobody has to do anything. You just wear it 5-7 days, take it off, switch to lotion. Life is good. It's because a lot of people we're busy. We're all busy. We're all too busy.
Yep.
We all work too much and have families or pets or friend events. And, you know, you just kind of forget. And your tattoo, despite how much money you may have put into it or thought you put into it, kind of takes a little back seat. And, you know, the
If
healing
it's been
doesn't
that
always go
much,
so great.
It needs to be good.
Yeah.
I'm not going to let you off the hook that easy, though.
Okay.
The tattoo, going to take care of her tattoo is not going to be your funny story. So
Okay.
give us a funny story.
Oh, funny story. Can I tell this one?
On this podcast, you sure can.
So a lot of times I get asked, like, what's the weirdest tattoo you've been asked for or the craziest story? And I wish I could say I had a whole bunch more. But bar none, the weirdest experience I had was I had a guy and he was just kind of like hovering in the corner of the shop, like waiting for like 2 or 3 people in front of him to get done. Like he just wouldn't approach. And I'm like, this is so strange. And then he like came over and was like, hey man. And I'm like, hey, what's going on? And he was like, so do you tattoo buttholes? And I was like, give me a little bit more information. And he was like, my boyfriend is not in love with the color of my butthole. Could you lighten the color of my butthole? And I was like, okay. I was like, I'm sure I could. I feel like this is going to be super painful. What I think you're looking for is like medical bleaching. Or you know, I think there's probably an alternative that's, I don't know how medical bleaching works. But I feel like it's probably going to be a lot better than like trying to take care of recoloring your butthole with tattooing.
Absolutely.
Just, you know, I don't see how that's going to heal very well.
So was this person's name Jacob?
Yeah.
No, I cannot divulge this person's name. No, honestly, I don't even remember this person's name. I didn't fill out a form or anything with them. I actually did see them a week later.
Did you say, how's your butthole?
No. I was with my daughter and I was at the fair and I saw him with 2 other guys and I couldn't help myself. I was just like, so that must be the guy that doesn't like the color of his butthole. But yeah, that would be my, you know, strangest story.
Jeez.
That's a strange one. Is there a specific tattoo that you've done that holds like special significance for you?
I tattooed my daughter maybe 2 weekends ago.
Wow.
She's 19. Just 2 little like star things. That would probably be low stakes, but you know, very significant to me.
Yeah.
I didn't think my kid when she was younger was like, oh my God, Dad, I want tattoos. And, you know, she's wise enough now. She's like, oh my God, I don't want any tattoos. Like, there's no way I'll ever make up my mind. Her best friend, I've probably tattooed like 4 times. For me, the most meaningful tattoo I have is actually this like Lorax on my leg. My daughter drew it when she was 5 and tattooed it on me when she was 13.
Really?
Yeah, that is my most meaningful.
Oh,
actually,
she tattooed it on you.
She tattooed it
Oh,
on me
fantastic.
when
That's
she was
awesome.
13. That's my most meaningful tattoo. Actually, before I tattooed her, she tattooed this smiley face on me that she drew when she was younger. I found it on a piece of paper. For some reason, his name is Mr. Kikiwaka.
Oh, that's so
I don't know where that came
I
from, and
really
she doesn't
like
remember
that.
either. So
I really like that.
We know people throughout history have used tattoos for what we'll call mystical purposes. So, what do you know about the use of tattoos for spells or magic in general?
Oh, that is a question that I do not know anything about.
Oh, that's fine.
That's fine. I'm going to go along that same line. In researching for today's episode, I came across a lot of articles about tattoos being used for terms of, I'll just say, healing.
Okay.
Which really surprised me because I'd never heard about that, and we're in the healing arts. The research was talking about how they believed that getting certain tattoos or certain symbols had the ability to cure ailments or promote well-being of the individual, but they were also used as forms of medicine to alleviate pain and aid in the healing process. So I have really a two-part question, which you probably have figured out. Mine are sometimes two parts. Have you ever encountered anybody that used tattoos as a healing process, or do you have any information about that?
Okay, so I did not know people use tattoos for physical healing. Am I surprised? No. But I don't know anything about it.
Okay.
But I do firmly believe that people use tattoos for mental healing.
Oh, absolutely. My
Yeah.
sister-in-law, she will say, it's time for me to get a new tattoo.
Absolutely. I have heard that. Wow, I actually remember like closing my doors one time and somebody like beating on my door and they're like, look, man, I've just had a shit day. I just need a tattoo. And I'm like,
Yep.
You're going to have to come back tomorrow. Like, we're closed. But I've had people hit me up like, hey, man, I'm ready for another one.
Yeah.
Shit's been downhill a little bit. It's definitely time for some tattoo therapy. I've definitely helped numerous people with cutting scars on forearms,
Yeah.
legs, cover them up to like move past that stage in their life. People commemorate sobriety, a decade, or just different things, hitting the next level in life and growing beyond something and leaving it behind, but not forgetting about it because all this stuff makes us who we are.
Right,
All
of
of the actions and things that go on in our life, make us who we are today.
Absolutely. I can also, I don't think it's a big stretch to think that, if you have low back pain and you get like a low back piece, you have whatever the symbol or art is, that, we use acupuncture and acupressure all the time for pain management. So I can imagine, even though it's not, purposeful for that purpose, that's weird, meant for that purpose in that moment, that might, be healing for people, or that people may already know the secret that, get a tattoo on your low back and it'll take away the pain. I don't know, but I'm just trying to put those two things like acupuncture and acupressure with tattooing, because we are piercing the skin, and that's very similar to what acupuncture does. So.
It's a logical leap for me.
Yeah.
Honestly, when you first mentioned that, my very first thought was, I've had acupuncture, I've done cupping, and that was honestly my first thought. I was like, okay, maybe it's kind of in the realm of acupuncture or something like that. So I think it's a very logical, conclusion.
So this will be our last question. Many magical traditions, such as voodoo and witchcraft, use tattoos for protection. Have you had any experience with anything like that?
Yeah, well, I mean, you can't talk much because of my symbol that stops people from lying to me.
Yeah,
I love
exactly.
this. Jason, you fall right into line. Thank you so much. I believe that symbols are important. I believe words are important. So for me, in my spiritual practices, I don't find it hard to conceive that symbols being tattooed on your body would deliver, especially if there was intent behind that.
Yeah.
For protection or anything. So I'm going to say I'm a believer. I really think that in the coming years we're going to find out that things that we call magic today are just physical principles that we've forgotten about in history.
I can see that.
So,
I wouldn't be surprised at all.
yeah.
I mean, like, I think too, like for like MMA fighters, which is that's my sphere, right? They always get like good luck charms, the horseshoe.
Yeah.
They get a 4-leaf clover on them or something silly like that. I think that there's a lot too. I mean, the sailors, they originally got like the pigs and the chickens on their feet so they wouldn't drown.
Yeah, I mean, it's, if not, you think like baseball or football, like I got to wear these socks. These are like the winning socks. If I'm not wearing these socks and I can't wash them all season, they're atrocious. But, I believe that having a symbol on you can be that same type of reminder or influencer. Like, man, I just got this tattoo and it's Demon Slayer and it's the blacksmith who makes the swords. But I very specifically wanted it on my arm to constantly remember, like, man, stay diligent, like, stay sharp, like, focus on your craft. Like, all these little symbols can have varying degrees of meaning to people to stay focused or not make a wrong turn in life again. I see that.
Jason, where can people find you on social media?
You can find me on Instagram and Facebook, Jason Jefferson Art, Jaysin, because I spell my name funny. Also have a website, idlehandsknocks.com. Yeah, you can see our artist work or, fill out the contact form and schedule a consultation and get things rolling.
Excellent. We'll put those in the show notes so everybody can find you.
Thank you.
Jason, thank you so much for being here today and sharing your expertise with us. We've really enjoyed getting to know you.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, man, my pleasure always. Like, getting to know you has been just good luck.
Jason, that's all the questions we have, but is there anything you would like the listeners to know?
Yeah, basically, come on down and get tattooed.
Yeah. If you come get tattooed, come across the hall, say hi to us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Jason, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it, man.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun.
Alrighty, so that was an awesome interview. We're so thankful that Jason came by today and talked to us. And
Absolutely.
then even after we stopped recording, we were talking to him for like another hour, it felt like.
Yeah.
So Jason's super, super cool. But I just really wanted to talk a little bit more about the history of tattooing. Some of our listeners, I know that interview was amazing, but you may also be having some questions like, well, who did the first tattoo? Jason actually brought it up while we were talking to him. He talked about Ötzi the Iceman.
Yep.
So Ötzi the Iceman has the oldest tattooed body that's ever been recorded, actually. Apparently, Ötzi, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly.
I think that's right.
Ötzi lived sometime around 300 or 3,300 BCE. Mm-hmm. So quite a few times. He was discovered in 1991, though. So he was found in the Otizal Alps on the border between Austria and Italy. So it wasn't just like they found one tattoo on Ötzi the Iceman.
Right.
They apparently, once they really started counting them up and taking the pictures, they found 61 in total, right? Which is a massive amount. But they weren't like these crazy tattoos like kind of what I've got, Ed. A lot of them were like really simple dots and like lines and stuff, right?
I'll just say the things I like about your tattoo is that there's a meaning behind every single tattoo you have.
Yeah.
Yours are more, I guess the word I would use knowing you is ceremonial as opposed to fashion.
No, yeah. And like it's even done by the fact that like most of the time my tattoos are covered anyways.
Yeah.
I don't even want people to really see them.
I will say this. Interestingly, you just recently got your last tattoo from your tattoo artist.
Yeah. Shout out to Noah. I'm gonna miss you, buddy. He's moving to Vermont, but I'll follow him up there. I don't care. But going back to Ötzi the Iceman with his simple lines and dots, I think this is really cool because you brought it up with Jason about the healing aspect of tattoos, right? So if you look at where Ötzi the Iceman, and you could Google image search for him, they're strategically placed on his lower back, knees, and ankles, which were areas thought to have been subjected to pain, suggesting like maybe there was like a possible therapeutic or ritualistic purpose to it. When they did look into his body, obviously ancient man, they really had a hard life. But where these tattoos were placed, there was ridiculous amounts of evidence of arthritis, fractures, bone spurs, and stuff like that. But it was almost laid 1-to-1 on top.
Of where the dots and lines were. That's really cool.
I think so too. Also, to some people that may be questioning, well, how did they tattoo? When you picture tattooing now, you picture loud guns, like, and
I love your impersonation of a wait. I love your impersonation of a tattoo gun.
I was just listening to one like 3 days ago. So one thing this is so hardcore. They would apparently puncture the skin using really, really sharp bone fragments. Maybe they would break them or they would sharpen bone to a very fine point. They would stab the skin and then take charcoal and rub it into the wounds.
Yeah.
Which is just so, oh my God.
I often think about things like that, and I wonder who was the first one to do that,
I know.
and who is the founder, of this technique, like that today we call tattooing. But I mean, was it an accident that they figured it out? I mean, we'll never know, but it seems like they figured it out pretty quickly.
I think if I had to put on a little guessing cap, charcoal actually is pretty sterile, isn't it? Right.
Well, I mean, it goes through. Yeah, I would say in the type of charcoal they would be using, it'd probably be sterile. Yeah.
So here's
not sterile, but clean enough.
Clean enough, right?
Yeah.
So my thought process is, a caveman gets cut by something, right? And the proverbial rub some dirt in it. So they grab some charcoal and he rubs it in it to coagulate the blood.
Be ash.
Yeah, just to coagulate the blood and get the bleeding to kind of stop. And then once it heals, he's like, it's still kind of there. And maybe, I don't know. That's just a dumb theory I have. There's nothing to support that. But anyway, back to Ötzi, right? Thank God that tattooing has come quite a long way from puncturing skin and rubbing dirt into it, charcoal. For the other people that are kind of interested in it, Jason also brought this up with the ancient Egyptians. So obviously mummies are very well preserved in Egypt, which is super, super fun because when we look at their bodies, we can see designs that are depicting animals, like deities that they worshipped. The earliest Egyptian mummies that we have found with these pretty intricate designs. I mean, anybody that's studied Egyptian hieroglyphics knows that the Egyptians loved a good picture, a good doodle of some sort.
Yeah.
And it didn't stop at their tombs and the walls of their palaces. They went, put them on the skin too. Let's do it. They were dated around 2000 BCE. So again, very, very long-standing tradition. The Egyptians used it more as a spiritual practice.
Right. It was a ceremonial practice and thought to be invocations to the gods.
Exactly.
Blessings from the gods. And also magical.
Mm-hmm.
They believed tattoos were magical.
There was a couple of different designs, like the Eye of Osiris was a common kind of tattoo.
That's what my tattoo is.
See, yeah, and it was thought to do a lot of things, like ward off evil spirits, keep you healthy. It was also
keep those evil exes away.
Keep those. Yeah. Even the Egyptians had exes, right? And the tattooing method that the ancient Egyptians used was pretty damn hardcore.
It was gruesome, if you ask me.
God. So it is believed that the common practice for tattooing in ancient Egypt is that they would take a thread coated in a very thick, viscous, dark ink, and it was sewn through the skin. And then this method would leave a line of ink beneath the skin as the thread passed through it. They wouldn't leave the thread in. They would dunk the thread in some ink, start going underneath the skin, and then pulling the thread, and it would leave it in that subdermal layer. Yeah. And then they would dunk it in ink again and just keep going. I cannot believe how awful how just uncomfortable that must have been.
Yeah, don't even want to experience that.
Seems like a Saw game. You know what I mean?
I'm going to be having a little minor surgery coming up, and the thing that's concerning to me the most is I'm going to have 5 stitches, 5 sutures, and it's not the putting the sutures in that I'm going to be concerned about because I'm going to be numb.
Yeah.
It's taking them out. I've only had sutures a couple of times in my life as a child and not as an adult. But the teeth gritting sensation is just a little bit nauseating. I'm gonna also say this. We had a conversation yesterday where you explored from a food perspective my worst nightmare. There was only one thing that could have been worse. Last night, Jacob made milkfish.
Yeah.
Which, first of all, milk and fish, I don't like either one of those. Like,
No. It's
horrible. I know, but
It's just the name of the fish.
The name of I know, but just those two things together is horrible. I know that it's not milk and fish, but just a horrible insight into my brain.
Yeah.
Okay, and then on top of it, you made the runniest,
Yep.
over easy eggs to go on top of it.
Uh-huh.
The only thing that could have made it worse is if you had served raw tomatoes with it.
Sometimes.
And I'm not going to say I had nightmares about it because I slept like a rock last night. It's probably why I'm so exhausted today. But when we had our food last night,
It crossed your mind.
it seized my appetite. The other thing I will say, folks, since I haven't really picked on Jacob a lot, we got to go to a concert the other night. Jacob was working, but Jared and I and a couple of our friends, Grace and Jordan, got to go see one of my favorite podcasts, Old Gods of Appalachia. They were in concert here in Knoxville, Tennessee at the Bijou Theater. And we had VIP passes, of course, and the show itself started at 8 o'clock, doors opening at 7. The VIP event was wonderful, but we were one of the first groups in, and so it only took us about 20 minutes. And then we had to exit the entire theater. So we had somewhere around an hour and a half to kill. And we are very supportive of each other. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, I would agree with that.
We're very supportive of each other in our life choices and what we do. So for the entire month of June, all of our staff has been alcohol-free.
Yep.
And we have been sugar-free.
Yeah.
Which has not been a big deal for me because that's most of my life.
Yeah.
And so we were there. We had already had dinner because we didn't know how long this event, the VIP event, was going to last, and it didn't last as long as we had assumed. And so we went out the side door, and we thought, what can we do? And then somebody said, well, what? We could go get dessert. And then Jared and I were like, well, we can't because sugar. They're like, well, let's just go get a drink. And we're like, well, we can't because of alcohol. So, Jacob ruined our evening out with our friends.
And I didn't even have to be near you guys.
You didn't even have to be near us. No, it was fine. We, in all honesty, the amount of alcohol we drink is usually only when we're with you at Palancho's.
Yeah, no,
Occasionally we'll have a drink at home. And the sugar thing, I've been on no sugar for about a year now.
Yeah.
And Jared honestly just doesn't eat a lot of sugar anyway.
No.
So it's only in times like that it even affects us, really. So we do have a new thing we're doing at the office. We're doing salads now.
Which I'm excited
healthy
for.
salads. I am too.
We start tomorrow, don't we?
Yeah, tomorrow.
Well, I will say, though, that it did mess me up because while you guys were doing that, I got off work at 6:30, and the tattoo convention was still going till 10 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
And normally the way I've always traditionally got, this is not recommended, they tell you not to drink anything before you get tattooed, any alcohol.
Right.
Because it thins your blood and it makes it a lot more difficult. I have historically always had at least one drink to calm my nerves because getting tattooed, I've got like
Oh, yeah, you couldn't drink this time. Could
yeah,
you?
I've got like 15 or 16 tattoos. I've always had at least a beer before them, right?
Not this
I had a
time.
raw dog at this time, and I was scared, man. Luckily, the place where I got it wasn't that painful, but man. So I was struggling with you too. But anyway, Ed, let's wrap it up.
Yep.
This has been a long episode. If anybody listening has some really cool ancient tattoos that you would like us to see, you could write it in or send it to us on social media. We would love to see them. I think that it would be really cool if anybody has like any wards of protection or like
Yeah, if you've used any kind of tattoos as magical spells or any kind of sigils, we'd love to hear about them, see pictures of them.
that'd be super cool. Also, I'm just a huge fan of American traditional, so if anybody's got some cool pieces they want to show me, send it to us. I think it'll be really, really cool.
Now, family, you adults have a few chores to do. Go on over to ravensvale.com and see about doing your chores on social media. Follow us on all the social media platforms that we've made available just for you folks. Like, listen, subscribe, and follow wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you don't mind, leave us a good rating and a kind comment. You can find the Ravensvale Cauldron podcast on your favorite podcast platform. If you haven't already, just search for the Ravensvale Cauldron podcast. And again, make sure you hit that follow button to stay up to date with our latest episodes.
Oh, and tell your friends about us, won't you?
So until next time, family,
See you soon.
The Ravensville Cauldron is a production of Small Raven Media. Today's episode was hosted by Ed Bolden Greer with co-host Jacob A. Garner. Audio engineering and sound design by Nick Devan at Nicky D Sound. Copyrighted 2024 Small Raven Media. All rights reserved.